In the last video, we created more arrays, and now let's do something different. Let's take input in an array. So instead of manually assigning each element, so we will have to take input. So let's create a new array. So I'm gonna call it X. I have commented the old array which we won't be using in this video, or we might. And I'm gonna first let's take the number. Let's make two variables. First one, let's call it uh, that is R. That means number of rows, and the other one, let's call it C. So we are gonna ask the user to basically enter the number of rows and column. Let's create an object of the scanner class so we can use our inputs. So what we will do, we will use the same logic that we used for printing. Since our logic will stay the same. Since we know how to access each element, we simply have to pass it on. So that's what we will be doing. So here I'm gonna call the nextInt function to store the number of rows. Similarly, I'm gonna take the number of columns from the user. User can enter any number of columns, and here I'm gonna store C. So now we can create our array. So I'm gonna create. You can use a data type like string, boolean, or double float. You can use any data type. I'm using int for simplicity's sake. And here in the row section, we pass the R, which user will enter, that is the number of rows, and in the this part we pass C, that is the number of columns. And let's see how it will work. So it will first assign the values, and then what it will do, it will basically create an array, a 2D array, which will have elements of R number of rows and C number of columns in each row. So to take input, we will have to use the exact same logic. So if you don't get it, watch the previous video first. So we are gonna create a variable called rows, right? So uh, it is it will give us a duplication warning, but instead of printing, let's comment this for now. So let me make it clear to you. So let's uh, let's move it away for now. Our focus is input. So we will start from row 0. That is the 0th row. For example, here we will go up to x dot length minus 1. So length returns the total number of elements. For example, if this is our array, it will return a length of 3. So since there are 3 rows, that is 3 elements in it, and we will have to start from 0, then 1, and then 2. So it's the exact same logic here. And also we will increment the rows in each iteration, after each iteration. So for each iteration of this rows, that is our outer loop, this loop will run. So this loop will run for each iteration of rows. So here instead of let's look at it first. So it works the same way. It starts from 0, but this time we will go up to the number of elements in rows. So if our rows is 0, that is this row. We are currently at this row since our row is 0, and we want to we will use x rows, which means that go to x0, that is this, the zeroth row in the x array, and then return its length. So dot length will return its length. Since there are four elements in this row, it will return 4. So our this loop will run from 0 to 3. That is, it will run 4 times since we count from 0, and we will increment the value of columns. And then we can, instead of printing it, we are gonna ask the user for our input. So we're gonna print the message asking for user to enter. We can ask the user to enter elements. So here user will keep entering elements, and we can call the input.next function to take an integer input. Next int function, sorry. And what we have to store this into what variable. So our variable will be x rows, since as you can see here, the number of rows will stay the same. So number of row is 0 0 0. So the value of row will stay the same for a complete row, but the column value will change. Therefore I am using rows here, since for this whole loop the row will stay the same, but our column will change. So I'm gonna write column here, and I'm gonna assign the value to this. So I'm gonna call it columns. So now we are taking input and continuously, and we are storing it into this index, this location. And after our inputs, let's print the array which we have already made the logic. So they are pretty identical, and let's run it. So it is asking for the number of rows. Uh, I'm gonna enter 2, so here I will have 2 rows. It will asking for number of columns. I'm gonna enter 8. So my each row will have 8 elements, right? So let's enter them like 44, 22, 77, 88, 99, 66, 11, 01, 41, 22, and so on. I have entered a lot of elements since I need to store 16 elements total. So as you can see, we got after our input was completed, we got our each element printed. So our first row has 8 elements and our second row has 8 elements as well. So pretty good so far. Um, but what if we want to update the message here? Uh, it is simply asking us to enter an element, but we can make the message a lot more clear. So instead of asking for enter element, we can ask enter element at row. Then we can simply print the value of row at rows plus rows column column, right? So if it doesn't make sense, just wait. Here we will print the value of columns, and I have to write. I simply have to insert a dash and or actually a colon, and then I can take the input from the user. So this will be our main message, so which will be displayed for each element. So first I'm printing enter element at row, then I'm using the rows variable, and let's insert a simple colon here, like this, or let's don't not insert a space. So now let's run it. So as you can see, it's asking for a number. Let's enter 3 rows, and let's enter 5 values. So as you can see, now it is asking that enter element at row 0 column 0. So I'm going to enter 1. Then it is asking for row 0 column 1. So as you can see, it is a lot more convenient. It will keep on going. So uh, as you can see, after taking all these values, after filling the first row, now it is at row 1 and column 0. So this will keep going. So you can uh, give it any value, 22, 0, negative 8. So as you can see, we got all our values printed here after we took the input. And oh, I realized I wrote the spellings of columns a little wrong, but you can go ahead and fix them. So this was what how multi 2D arrays works. So I hope you got the idea of it. In the next video, we will pass 2D arrays to different methods, and that's so I think that's all there is to it. What more could we explain? So I think everything is done. So aside from the spellings of columns, which I messed up, and we can for variables we can give them any name. They don't require you perfect grammar. You can give them any name at all. So now our program is complete. So that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching.